What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're looking at Daniel Radcliffe's latest action film, Guns Akimbo. A movie I didn't know too much about. I watched a little bit of the trailer, and as soon as they showed Daniel Radcliffe with guns bolted to his hands, I was in. I was like, this is the guns version of Edward Scissorhands, and I'm okay with that. Not exactly. Weapons aside, this is not Edward Scissorhands. That film is subtle and beautiful, and I hope to one day review it on my channel. This film is aggressive and fed with a hearty dose of adrenaline that'll make you regurgitate your tiffin. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, tiffin, a light meal, especially lunch. No worries though, because throughout this lockdown I've been skipping lunches. No regurgitation for me. Guns Akimbo is about a non-violent computer coder in an alternate universe where a massive murderous televised event called Schism is going on in the background that pits two players against one another to the death. One day, this programmer wakes up with guns bolted to his hands and is ordered to kill a character named Nix to gain his freedom back. First of all, I think this is a fun movie. It's especially fun to watch probably while high on something, because even though it's not overly trippy, it feels like it is because of how it was shot. You know, in films where you might get a little bit dizzy when a camera would circle around a couple of main characters over and over again during a conversation? Well, this does something incredibly similar, except even more disorienting, because instead of physically moving around somebody, it seems to just turn, like so, over and over again. So you get something like that interwoven with a lot, and I really do mean a lot of jagged edits that are also meant to disorient you. And somewhat colorful lighting makes a film that feels trippy, even though the plot is rather straightforward. And I was torn on scoring the editing and cinematography subcategories, good or bad scores, because I don't know if it's technically good or bad. But at the end of the day, I gave credit where credit was due, and I awarded both with a good score, especially because I think they accomplished what they set out for with stuff like that, regardless on if it's incredibly strange, disorienting, distracting, and a non-standard way of making films. It was the point, so more power to them. As for Daniel Radcliffe, I feel for the guy. I do. I don't think he's found any character since Harry Potter that he has felt born for the role, and he just keeps looking. And again, even with guns bolted to his freaking hands, which by default makes it a decent, memorable character, I don't think this was the role for him. Even with the wannabe Voldemort villain in it. Don't get me wrong, I think he did a pretty decent job for what it is, but when I ask myself if anybody else could have played it, I gotta say, most likely, sure. Which, by the way, I can't say for Johnny Depp as Edward Scissorhands. He was born for that role. Tonally, this film is not like Edward Scissorhands, though. It's more like Jason Statham's Crank / maybe Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, just not as fun as either of those. Again, I do find this film fun, but there's like a bit of missing spirit in this film, and I feel like that's because I don't really care about any of these characters. Nobody's really developed that well. Even the villains' motivations are slim to none. The entire reason why they put Daniel Radcliffe into the Schism game is massively weak and petty, which severely limits the villain's strength and even title as bad guy. It's hard to take the guy seriously after they made him so petty. I mean, sure, there's a decent usage of dark humor in this film, as well as a message of how destructive one can be with just a keyboard, but most of the truly good things to be found in this film are mostly found beneath a lot of other layers that don't matter as much, which makes me feel like at the end of the day, I will be forgetting about this movie. Let's take a look at that final score for a second. From an unbiased vantage point, this film is fine. Again, it tells a fairly competent narrative, and its distracting uses of cinematography and editing were utilized in a way that they wanted to utilize them, which deserves credit. My unbiased score is 74%, but again, I think this film will be forgotten down the road, so I was a little bit unsatisfied as a whole, so my bias score is 64%, rounding everything out to a final score of 69%, 69 out of 100 possible stars, granting this movie with a letter grade of D. The highest D that you can possibly get before it turns into a C-, but a D regardless. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this movie in the comments down below. Were you a fan of it? Did it keep your excitement glued to the screen, or did you find it a bit lackluster? Tell me down below. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review and would like to see some others like it. Hit the thumbs up button because that always helps out my channel, and don't forget about the little bell icon because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!